In our family, both parents have always worked, and Mom always prioritized her job, John reflected. Hearing John's words, I had initially thought his mother might not be very interested in family matters. My name is Lisa. I'm a 42-year-old part-time housewife. 8 years ago, I married John, who is 4 years older than me. Unfortunately, we haven't been blessed with children, and that's where we are now. True to his words, his mom was a total career woman. She's the complete opposite of me. She makes decisions quickly and acts on them immediately. I'm often described as laid back by others, and I do admire people like his mom who are so decisive. When we got married, I thought she might be a bit intimidating, but after having a good talk, I found that even though she's straightforward, she's always thinking of others and makes sound decisions. I've come to really love her. Since my own mother has passed away, I've always turned to her for support. However, John doesn't seem to like his strict mother much and often rebels against her. It seems to have been this way for a long time. He always holds on to grudges about things he didn't like, saying things like, "This happened then," or "It was like that at that time." From what I hear, I don't think her actions were wrong, but he seems to have this idea that, as the eldest son, he should be treated more favorably. But she treated his sister, Alice, in the same way. She's just fair to everyone. It seems like Alice admires their mom, so maybe it's just John being stubborn. John's mom retired 2 years ago. That same year, John's dad passed away, and she lost her spirit all at once. She always said she wanted to travel with Dad after retiring. But that dream never came true for her. Our lives changed drastically from that point. Lately, something seems off with Mom, John mentioned. He started saying this, and when we visited his parents' house, I too noticed that her behavior had changed. She would forget things she had just said or couldn't remember where she had placed items. I had a bad feeling about this. Yet, he didn't seem to offer her the support she needed. So, she's finally lost it, huh? Well, if that's the case, just put her in a home. It's not our place to interfere. She worked so much, she must have the money, he said carelessly. I couldn't hide my anger at his words. She's your mother, isn't she? Think about her more. But he just sneered. You're practically brainwashed by her, he retorted. Clearly, he was not pleased that I admired his mom. If you're going to say that, why don't you take care of her, he challenged. Feeling hopeless, I contacted Alice. Alice is a mother of 2, with her eldest in college and the youngest in middle school, and she also works part-time, leading a very busy life. I hadn't been in touch much, knowing how busy she was, but she's always been someone I could rely on. When I reached out to her, she immediately said she would take her mom to the hospital. I'm sorry I left everything to you. I'll take over from here, she assured me. Despite her reassurance, I was worried about John's mom and decided to accompany them to the hospital. After several visits and tests, she was diagnosed with dementia. The diagnosis suggested that the drastic change in her life after retirement, coupled with the loss of John's dad, might have triggered it. She was deemed in need of care. John, Alice, and Alice's husband all discussed the situation. Surprisingly, John said something I hadn't expected. We'll move in and take care of Mom. It's hard for Alice with her kids and all, he suggested. We lived in a rental close to his parents' house, so moving in wouldn't change our living situation much. On the other hand, moving back to his parents' house would mean a change in school districts for Alice's kids since they lived in the next town over. I prepared myself for the caregiving role. Since then, we've been living with her. She has lost some of her vigor, but when I take her outside, she lights up and sometimes talks like she used to. Because she loves being outdoors, it seems to cheer her up whenever we go out. Seemingly thanks to that, her dementia hasn't progressed much. On John's day off, I invited him to join me for a walk. I'm tired from work. Why go out of our way to do that? The weather is nice today, so why not go to a hotel restaurant for lunch? Despite he promising to take care of her, it's been me who's actually been looking after her. What does he think of me and her? But, going out for lunch might be a good idea. It's the off-season now, so I'll look for a day trip spot. When I told her about the idea, she was delighted, so we took my car to the hotel. After enjoying the fancy meal, we returned home, but I couldn't find John. He hadn't mentioned going anywhere. Worried, I called him, but he didn't answer. Instead, I got a message right away. He said he was out drinking with friends and would be back late. I had a bad feeling. Frustrated with him not returning, as I was about to go to bed, I heard a car outside. Peeking through the upstairs window curtains, I saw him getting out of an unfamiliar car. I quickly snapped a photo with my phone. It was too far to see clearly, but it seemed like a woman was driving. I couldn't tell much from this alone. But from that day, I decided to carefully watch his actions. 3 months have passed since then. Her condition seems to have improved a bit. The doctor said taking her out and doing brain exercises might be helping with the improvements. However, they mentioned it won't completely cure her, so we need to continue. What changed since then is I started teaching her a bit of my piano hobby and she began attending day services. Making new friends of her age seems to be a good stimulus for her. That was when I discussed about day services from a nursing home with John. Initially, he was all for putting her in a facility, but when it came to using daycare services, he said, that would just reduce the inheritance. Why don't you just take care of her at home, which was absurd. Despite he strongly opposing it as a waste of money, Alice stepped in saying, then why don't you take care of her for a day? Give Lisa a break. And we managed to start the daycare service. Alice picks up her mother for appointments and sometimes comes over to play with her kids. Plus, she brings me treats and side dishes when she visits. I want to emulate her energy. She's indeed her daughter. They get along well, but John seems to dislike it, recently coming home late and even working on weekends. I've been trying to make sure John doesn't feel left out by sharing daily stories and asking about his work when he's home. Yet, he responds condescendingly, you wouldn't understand work stuff anyway. Then, what am I supposed to do? However, one day, I was suddenly freed from these worries. What's with that luggage? I was surprised to see him with a suitcase as he was about to leave in the morning, so I asked. Oh, I have a business trip starting tonight. It's going through the weekend. 4 days. They just told me yesterday, such a hassle. Hearing that, I had no choice but to be convinced. But he looked somewhat restless and excited, despite complaining. Where are you going? Ooh, well, where was it again? They just told me yesterday, I need to check at the office. He said, avoiding eye contact. Okay. Take care then. I hurried him out as he was running late and closed the door. I felt something was off, and then mother-in-law spoke to me. Lisa, good morning. About this. Isn't this the brochure of the hotel we went for lunch with you? She was holding a brochure for the hotel, with part of it cut out. It was probably the one we got, which I thought we had thrown away because we didn't need it. Upon closer inspection, I realized the cutout part was a coupon. We exchanged looks. She went back to her bedroom and showed me her diary. She started keeping a diary after being diagnosed with dementia. It contained entries suspecting John's infidelity. She apologized to me. I'm sorry for keeping silent till now. I couldn't tell if what I wrote here was true, and I didn't know how to bring it up. Leading to this situation. For a moment, I was at a loss for words. All I could say was, I see. Her face looked like she was about to cry. That's when I smiled. Thank you. This gives me confidence. Her expression changed completely. I shared that I also suspected his infidelity but hadn't said anything, thinking it would upset her. She seemed to be well today. Almost as if she wasn't suffering from dementia at all. Although I was convinced of his infidelity, I wanted solid evidence. When she asked me if I was all right, I was able to clearly express my desire for a divorce. She started making a phone call after hearing this. About an hour later, the doorbell rang. It was someone from her former workplace. She used to work at a law firm, and this person was a lawyer specializing in divorce. I never imagined she would help sue her own son. I talked to the lawyer about what steps to take next. Then, the doorbell rang again. It was Alice. I'm really sorry for my worthless brother. I was taken aback by her fervent apology, but her support was reassuring. The next day, we headed to the hotel in Alice's car. There, we spotted the car that had dropped off John a few times before. We also found him and a woman. I took photos of the scene and noticed something shocking. The woman was holding a small boy. My heart was racing. I remembered finding a child's toy in his bag once. When I asked, he said it might be from dining out with a colleague's family and that he'd return it to him. I had accepted that explanation, but perhaps it belonged to that child. After gathering evidence, we went back home. I was determined to proceed with the divorce and followed the plan. First, I called the moving company. I consulted with you yesterday, but is it possible to move immediately? The company checked and confirmed, yes, it's possible. We packed the essential belongings, and I called another service. An hour later, the movers arrived and quickly loaded our belongings. We left our stuff at Alice's place, and she had arranged a monthly rental apartment for me. Since her husband works in real estate, he found it quickly. I had one more task left. After the moving company left, another service arrived. Are you here for the lock change? Yes. We nodded, and the work began immediately. Now, John can no longer enter this house. Since the house is in my mother-in-law's name, we don't need his permission for anything. The next morning, I went straight to the city office. I had to make sure, even though it seemed unlikely. If John had acknowledged a child out of wedlock, it would be recorded in the father's family registry. As a wife, I have the right to request his family registry, so I checked it. Just as I thought. Seeing it, I was shocked. He had an illegitimate child. The child I saw yesterday must be his. To cheat, have a child, and acknowledge it without saying anything is the worst. I have no feelings left for him. I'm determined to see this through. Then, in the evening, I got a call from my husband. Hey. The key won't work. What happened? Open up. Huh? Since we changed the locks, of course your key won't work. Changed them? Why? Your home isn't there anymore. Besides, we've moved out. What? I could hear the panic in his voice. Imagining his expression made me laugh. Leaving your dementia-stricken mother to your wife, having an affair, making a child, lying about a business trip to go to a hotel? And choosing the same hotel your wife and mother visited, all because there happened to be a coupon at home? Using your wife's coupon to go on a trip with your mistress is unbelievable. He was trying to say something, but his words were incoherent. He really thought I knew nothing. You should have divorced when you had a child. But then, there's the issue of taking care of your mother, right? That's why you couldn't divorce. After I said that, he finally spoke. It's not like that. I couldn't help but laugh at the expected response. Then, Alice, who was beside me, couldn't hold back and shouted at him. Explain how it's not then. He was surprised to hear her voice. I played it cool and said, oh, it's on speakerphone, so everyone can hear this conversation. Alice, mother-in-law, and the lawyer were all here. What are you doing? I didn't do anything. It's all a misunderstanding. I had never shouted at him before, but I raised my voice in anger at his denial. If it were a misunderstanding, it wouldn't be on the family registry. Don't you understand that your words insult not only me but also your mistress and your child? Do you plan to call the child a mistake? After that, he fell silent. I'm going to divorce you, so do whatever you want after that. Wait. That would be a problem. Huh? A problem? If we continued like this, I would be the one in trouble. But, what about mother? As he said that, she shouted. Do you expect your divorced wife to take care of your mother? Apologize to Lisa first. Show some sincerity. Don't worry. I won't trouble you or your mistress. But remember, even when I'm gone, you won't get a penny of my inheritance. He fell silent. I opened my mouth, knowing this would be my final say. I was aware of your affair for a while, but I couldn't bring it up because of your mother. However, with the support of them, I've decided to divorce you. You turned out to be the worst husband, but I was fortunate to have the best mother-in-law and sister-in-law by my side. For that alone, I am thankful to you, John. After saying that and hanging up the phone, mother-in-law broke down in tears. Later, John and I officially divorced. Through the lawyer, I demanded share of the property. Since we sent a certified letter to his company, it seems he became uncomfortable there. But he can't quit because he needs to earn child support and living expenses. I received a substantial amount of property from my divorce. John's mother apologized for the trouble he caused and gave Alice and me a living will gift, instructing Alice to use the rest of her estate for hospital and facility fees. With Alice's eldest son landing a job and moving out, she is living with Alice's family. I bought a condo nearby and still maintain a close relationship with them. Encouraged by mother-in-law, I obtained a music therapy certification and now lead a fulfilling life, visiting to daycare services and other facilities to perform and teach piano.